Hi, I'm Doug Schulman. Thank you for joining us for our Community and Philanthropy Town Hall, highlighting OneMain's commitment to supporting the communities in which we live and work. OneMain's mission is to improve the financial well-being of hardworking Americans. We operate in 44 states and have branches in more than 1,400 communities across the country. Many of the communities we serve struggle with financial insecurity. In fact, about 25% of our customers live in credit insecure and credit at-risk counties, as defined by the Federal Reserve. Our business model and the reason we show up to work every day is built on providing responsible access to credit. Access to credit means access to opportunity and helps alleviate some of the economic inequality that exists in these communities. It's no secret that today's uncertain economic environment, including high inflation, has made things tougher for many Americans. Promoting financial stability and helping those who need a leg up is key to keeping our community strong. During this town hall, we'll discuss how we are bringing our mission to improve the financial well-being of hardworking Americans to life through our community and philanthropic partnerships. This starts with our impact investing strategy. In 2021, we issued a social bond specifically designed to address the needs of credit insecure communities, with at least 75% of the loans allocated to women and people of color. We followed this in 2022 with the issuance of our social ABS bond, the first of its kind by a U.S. issuer. This bond supports customers in rural areas, many of whom are lower income. Also in 2022, we committed $50 million to support 2 Minority Depository Institutions and military veterans. Today, we'll hear from the leaders of the 2 MDIs who have benefited from this commitment. Lloyd DeVaux, President and CEO of Sunstate Bank, based in Miami-Dade County, and Kenneth Kelly, Chairman and CEO of First Independence Bank, based in Detroit, Michigan. 2021 and 2022 marked the first full school year for Creditworthy by OneMain Financial. Our innovative financial education program for high school students has been active for 2 academic years. This free curriculum is currently in more than 2,100 high schools across the country and growing, reaching more than 100,000 students. And our team members have volunteered in classrooms across the country to bring this curriculum to life. We focus on reaching students and schools that need this education the most. As many school budgets and resources are being cut, we provide financial education to students nationwide, free of cost. This topic is very personal for me. Years ago, I was a co-founder of Teach for America and a high school teacher in the South Bronx. Understanding how to manage finances and credit is critical and give students the tools they need to set themselves up for a stronger financial foundation for their future. To create our creditworthy curriculum, we partnered with EVERFI, the nation's leading social impact education innovator. We'll hear from Ray Martinez, co-founder and president of EVERFI, about how Creditworthy is making an impact on young people and why it's so important for the private sector to invest in education. We also prioritize community and economic development through our corporate philanthropy. OneMain is focused on donating to organizations that combat food insecurity, promote financial empowerment, and champion diversity and inclusion. Volunteerism and giving back are integral parts of our corporate culture and an important way for our 9,000 team members to engage with each other, their neighbors, and our customers. Today, we'll hear from Erica McCoy, Manager of Economic Mobility Services at Feeding America, who will speak about how Feeding America is working to alleviate and address the root causes of hunger in America through their fantastic Empower program. The Empower program supports food bank programs that give individuals access to longer-term economic mobility resources, such as workforce development and financial coaching. With that, I will introduce our first panel. Please welcome our treasurer, Dave Schultz, Lloyd DeVaux, President and CEO of Sunstate Bank, and Kenneth Kelly, Chairman and CEO of First Independence Bank.
All right. Well, Doug, thanks very much for the terrific intro. Very, very honored to have Ken and Lloyd spend time with us today. Man, this is a topic that we are so passionate about. So if you don't mind, guys, let's just jump right in. And maybe we start off by asking briefly for some background, what your institution does, what's your mission, how does OneMain's commitment through the JP Morgan Empower Fund help to support the underserved communities that you work with? How do you promote financial inclusion? How do you think about building trust in your communities?
So my name is Lloyd DeVaux, and I am President and CEO of Sunstate Bank in Miami. We have 3 locations. We serve 3 different distinct geographies in Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County is our MSA, and we've been in business since 1999 when the bank was started, and it was started as an MDI. We've become a lot more active in the MDI world. In the last, I came on board 9 years ago, so we really picked up our focus 9 years ago, did an acquisition in 2017, which expanded the size of the bank about 3 times its size to about $500 million today.
Yeah, and good afternoon. My name is Kenneth Kelly. I serve as Chairman and CEO of First Independence Bank. First Independence Bank's been in business now for 53 years, got started in actually May of 1970. It was one of the positive outcomes of the 1967 Detroit riots, which was based on a police brutality situation. And so we are very fortunate to have a strong history and heritage as we do. In 2020, we actually expanded into the Minneapolis market. In fact, we were invited into that market by 5 major institutions after the George Floyd's murder. If you don't mind, I love to call those names. That was Bremer Bank, Bank of America, Huntington, TCF, US Bank, and Wells Fargo. And so our history has really been focused on the communities that we serve. In fact, most specifically, being sure that we are a beacon of hope as it relates to financial inclusion.
Thank you. I was wondering, how do you, the incredibly changing financial landscape these days and all the banks in the news, how do you manage or how do you balance your community mission with running a solid bank and adapting to all the financial changes we've seen over the last couple of years?
You have to do both. I would tell you the question you ask is a very legitimate one. It's one that we are certainly talking about on a monthly basis inside of our institution. What we have seen and what our focus has been really since about 2018 and 19 is really developing strong partnerships, strong collaborations with large institutions. I just named 5 of them. We currently have 6 of the largest banks in the country who are investors in our institution. And so that has taken on a different really meaning in terms of how do we collaborate with large institutions, but also maintain our focus on the community that we serve. And so we are balancing that act. I'll tell you that it's difficult at times, but most importantly, what we want to do is create a sustainable institution over the long haul. And we believe those partnerships are going to help us build that base so that we can be a lot more specific and pointed at serving those communities that we care the most about.
So from my perspective, our mission statement is to create sustainable value for our stakeholders, and our stakeholders being our shareholders, our employees, our customers, and our communities. And I think it's the same for most, especially most metropolitan areas. It's very noisy out there. It's very hard to get attention. And so for a small institution of 500 million, we have to have boots on the ground. We have to be out there in the organizations that we're focused on supporting. And we support a a number of what we call low-income organizations that support low to moderate income areas. And it's a testament to our people who get out there and try to get below the noise so they can be heard. We do a lot of sponsorships. We have a partnership with JP Morgan, which has helped us ramp up this organization, our organization, in terms of how we support the communities. And one of the things about the Miami-Dade area is the affordable housing is a major problem because you only have so much land that you can develop from the Everglades to the ocean. So you don't really have room to expand to create areas of affordable housing. So that has been a big focus, and the support that we get from JP Morgan and the Empower Fund has been very helpful. The funds from OneMain, we're able to do more with low to moderate income organizations to provide more financial support to them at the same time as we ramp up our focus on community development loans and affordable housing.
Lord, I owe you one because that was a perfect segue to the next question I had written down. Going from your mission and going from your strategy to tactically, how do you get in touch with? How do you build trust with? How do you know? How do you reach out to the customers who really could use the most help? How do you think about that?
So Ken, let me start. Ken,
Sure.
We are involved in our members of just about every significant community organization out there, including the cities that we do business with. So most of the cities have foundations, and most of them have business boards, and many of the organizations in the area have fundraising events. We are heavily involved in organizations like Alphabet International for Literacy, and CHI, which is Community Health Institute, which serves low to moderate health needs in the community. And we participate in whatever types of events. We make donations, we send people, and you have to be known, you have to be seen out there. Otherwise, it's very difficult. And, people talk about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. It takes equity. You have to be committed to doing equity, because just making a $10,000 donation to an organization to help them support low to moderate, you may not get a financial return. You may not get an ROI on that investment. You are, but the ROI is over a long term. So you've got to be committed to doing this, and it takes capital. It takes funds to do this.
Yeah, David, I would agree with that. Part of I would say the description of our banks is community banks, and that is exactly what Lloyd just described, and we do very much the same. There's probably not a significant leader in the community that we're not a phone call away from. And with that comes that responsibility, as Lloyd just talked about, which means you have to be there for people, for them to have that level of respect and trust of you. And that oftentimes shows up in the form of sponsorships and fundraisers. And, I'll tell you, I'm amazed that sometimes, individuals letting me know what my team has done in the community in that regard. And sometimes it's just physically showing up, being there, sharing your expertise, giving a presentation at a church or, any major organization that's a nonprofit. We have to kind of cover that ground. And oftentimes some individuals can miss that as part of the real mission of the work that we do. But what you've done in your sponsorship through Chase is allowed us to be able to, again, create more creative resources to be able to do more of that work.
Ken, I'd like to pose the next question to you to start. The racial wealth gap is a topic that's top of mind for so many of us in the communities that we serve. How do you think about that? Where do you begin? What are some of the strategies you're using to tackle that topic?
It's a wide spectrum, and it's one that can be very difficult to focus on when you have limited resources. And so fundamentally, we try to do, from the bank's perspective, just those, I'll call it X's and O's, blocking and tackling, and being sure that individuals understand the basics of operating their own bank account, understand the basics of home ownership, Those are the blocking and tackling that I would tell you comes with the everyday living. On the other end of that spectrum, I would tell you probably more strategic is thinking about the end in mind, which is we all know that we will all pass away. But in the community, I would tell you we have a high percentage of individuals who do not have a will, healthcare directive, or power of attorney. And it's one of the reasons I wrote the book that I wrote that was just recently published, was because I saw those disparities of many families working all of their lives to take care of their families. And then in the end, it has to go through the probate process, and whatever that value may be gets eroded. And so I would tell you, to your point, there's a wide spectrum of financial literacy. But if we do begin with the end in mind, which is one day all of us will leave here, then I think we can think about it more foundationally in terms of starting with that end in mind and backing up. How do we, curate all of the work we've done in such a way that either our loved ones or the charities that we care about are taken care of based on all of the labor that we have sacrificed to acquire whatever means that we've acquired.
So, and I agree with that 100%. In fact, we have in Miami-Dade, we have a number of different types of low to moderate areas, not only African-American, but Hispanic. Little Havana is an area of town that where a lot of Cubans live in. Little Haiti is an area of town where a lot of immigrant Haitians live in. And it takes generations to bring these people along. And for us, it starts with education. We focus so much on organizations that support education in low to moderate schools where the lunch percentage of lunches are greater than 50%, free lunches. So that's one of our focuses. And education is, as I mentioned earlier, you can't look at the ROI on this. This ROI is a long-term ROI. But if you support education and you support the education in the low to moderate areas, you create better citizens, you create better employees, you create people who are more likely to be able to bring the next generation along in a better place than the previous generation. And this is where we focus a lot right now. And you have to be out there. We have rolled out a social media strategy because, with today's environment, there are no boundaries. You may say it used to be a 3-mile radius around the bank. There's no longer a 3-mile radius around the bank. It's how far can you reach and what are your programs in order to encourage people to come into the bank and face to face. You've got to be out there. You've got to be in those organizations. And we have organizations like the Martin Luther King Breakfast that we have been supporting for 20 years. And we every single year we sponsor that event. So these are things that take time to come to fruition. And the support of organizations like Chase and like One Financial and others who have stepped in has made a difference. And again, as a small bank, you can't do it alone. You've got to be involved with community organizations, whether it's CDFIs or other MDIs or charitable organizations holding fundraisers and events or business meetings or meeting with officials. Those are the things that move the ball forward.
Gentlemen, you've been so kind with your time. On behalf of Doug and the entire team, thank you very much. We are so honored to partner with you. Our missions between our three organizations are so close together. We're really excited about what we can do in the future. So thank you very much.
Very
well, we'll be in touch.
I would now like to introduce Ray Martinez, co-founder and president of EVERFI. EVERFI is creating powerful partnerships that connect education to the real world and expand opportunity for students and learners of all ages. We are proud to have worked with EVERFI to develop Creditworthy by OneMain Financial. I will now turn it over to OneMain's Lily Fu Claffey and Paula Garcia Abo for this portion of our town hall.
Thanks, Doug. Ray, it's great to see you. Paula, thanks for joining us. We're delighted to have this conversation today about EVERFI and our OneMain's project with EVERFI, Creditworthy. Ray, let's get right into it. Tell us about EVERFI and tell us what it does.
Great. Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank Doug for that kind introduction. So at EVERFI, we have a suite of technology solutions that companies are using to drive social impact for their employees, for their customers, and for the communities that they care about. The technology ranges from volunteer solutions to grant making, all the way over to internal workplace training and driving change as we deliver financial education to public school students across the United States and adult consumers. We've built a really special network, Lily, that you're familiar with and Paul is familiar with over the last 15 years, where we operate in over 35,000 public schools across the United States, Canada, Puerto Rico, and the UK. We're on pace by the end of 2024 to be reaching 10 million students annually. 46% of those students are low to moderate income. 43% of those students are students of color, and we're on pace to reach about 2 million adult learners. We have over 2,000 corporate partners and nonprofit partners that license our technology and our services. And I'll just say that we are really proud to partner with OneMain on the Creditworthy program that we'll be learning a lot more about today.
Paula, when we talk about our impact work at OneMain, we frequently invoke the concepts of financial education and inclusion. Maybe I would ask Ray, since EVERFI is based on serving these two, very important goals, tell us why financial education and inclusion matters. Like, how does it actually affect communities and families and individuals?
Yeah, I'd say a couple things. Number one, if you're a student attending public school in the United States today, there's a good chance that you qualify for free and reduced lunch. So for the first time in many years, over 50% of students that attend public school qualify for this. And if we're going to change the narrative on the racial wealth gap that exists, on equity, on wealth creation, it really starts with opportunity. And it starts with making sure that every student, every family, regardless of zip code, regardless of where you live, has access to the knowledge to make really important and informed financial decisions. The financial industry is moving so fast as it relates to new products and new services. And one of the things that has lagged behind is the education. And that's really where OneMain and your investment with Creditworthy is really making a difference. I often get asked, why should the financial industry care about this topic? Well, the financial services industry and OneMain should care about this topic because you all are in the business of building trust. And I think we have seen just really over the last few weeks, few months, what can happen when that trust evaporates. We can see what consumers can do, what the markets can do, and how do you build trust? Well, you build trust by being competent, by being caring, and by demonstrating commitment. And OneMain Financial is demonstrating commitment early in a consumer's journey by starting these conversations around credit and personal finance at an earlier age. And we're not just providing literacy, because financial literacy and Financial Literacy Month really is about knowledge. We're going beyond that with our technology and with the services that we're providing and with OneMain employees coming in and volunteering in the classroom. We're about driving capability and understanding. So how do we drive an improvement in a student's understanding, confidence, their ability to apply this learning in their everyday life? And just, one thing that we're seeing, nationally, Lily, as we look across, the millions of students that are engaging in this software on a daily basis are the number of students, and it's well over 50%, that are going home and having conversations with their family. So the intergenerational impact of providing this knowledge is so powerful. And, we want to make sure that it's, in the hands of every family, every student in the United States. And that's the journey that we embarked on. Now, listen, there are a lot of systematic barriers to how wealth is created in this country. Education is going to play a critical role. And I think we're just getting started in what this program can be over the long term.
Paula, do you have a perspective?
Yeah, for me and for us at OneMain, it really involves empowering not only the students, but as Ray mentioned, the adults and the families with all the tools that they need to succeed, right? So when it comes to the resources that we have online, everything is free and it's all specific to credit education, which is something that I can talk about more later. But, the thought is that a lot of adults don't really have any idea of how their credit score is calculated or what it entails, how often they should check it. And so for us, being able to provide that access is of the utmost importance. And it starts with our next generation, but then it's never too late for adults as well.
And if I could just add one other thing here, Lily, as it relates to financial education and the Creditworthy program, when we started the business 15 years ago in an RV and we're traveling all across the country, hoping anybody would take a meeting with us, you only had one state at the time, Utah, that required personal finance in order to graduate from high school. You now have 15 states that have a standalone requirement, 36 states, upwards of 40 states that have recommended requirements. Just in the last year, you had Michigan and Ohio, and then the largest state in the country to pass this legislation, Florida, to require financial literacy. So what we have created in many instances are these unfunded mandates where you're putting more pressure on teachers and taxpayers to fuel the innovation, to fuel the learning. The private sector plays a key role. And that is exactly what we're doing here by providing this ubiquitous access to real-time, meaningful, digital financial education available in English and Spanish, tracking every measure, every instance of learning. You're providing a very critical resource. And one of the things that I've been able to do over the last year is spend a lot of time with different political officials. And again, you can pick up the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, you can turn on any major TV news program. And for the first time in my life, you're really seeing the politicization of education. And my message to attorneys generals, Republican or Democrat, or governors that I meet with is we often hear what you are against, but what are you for? And I think this topic of financial education is nonpartisan. Like, people are coming together, politicians are coming together around this. And so just in the last couple of years, we're up to well over 2,000 schools active on the Creditworthy program. That number is just going to continue to multiply over time because it's such a valuable resource for a variety of different reasons.
I mean, I'm delighted to hear that you're getting traction with this message, and we agree with you completely that this is something that all of us should be able to agree on and support for, as part of a core curriculum for kids to be able to function in this, in our society, and in a society where, as you say, there are lots and lots of barriers to wealth and success. Let's talk about Creditworthy, the Creditworthy program specifically. How's it going? I know that, we talk a lot about metrics and about measuring our impact. Let me ask you, both of you, how do you think it's going?
I think it's going fantastic in a nutshell. We've reached over 100,000 students just this academic year alone. And what that translates to is over 2,000 schools nationwide. So we're in all 50 states. Happy to finally say that. And so out of those schools, what also really drives me personally, coming from a low to moderate income school myself, we are in at least 50% of those schools. And that just drives our commitment even further, right, to prioritize those schools and communities that need this education the most. And then one thing that I'll add in terms of, when I think about how this program as a whole really moves the needle, I mentioned earlier about credit education and the importance of having that information as a young adult and as an adult. One of the best parts of this partnership was being able to create, Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first credit education course that even EVERFI had created. And so what we did to do that was we got our best folks in-house that were credit experts. And we built this curriculum in partnership with EVERFI, which for the first time was the credit education course, solely focused on building credit. How do you manage it? How do you protect it, especially nowadays with fraud and privacy issues? And so we're really proud to be a part of building that course for the first time.
Yeah, I think the scale that we're seeing and the uptick in schools is really unprecedented. Teachers are under enormous amount of pressure every day when they walk into the classroom. And, ultimately the teacher is a very important customer. And teachers are going to make very quick decisions, informed decisions about what they put in front of their students. A program like Creditworthy checks all the boxes. It's interactive, it's fun, it's going to prepare these students for success as they think about their career journey, as they think about their journey to college, as they think about starting their own business. It's standards aligned, there are measurements, and most importantly, we're not asking the teacher, we're not asking the school district, we're not asking the curriculum director, we're not asking the taxpayers to pay for it. There's a third-party payer, there's a private sector payer, and that's OneMain Financial. It's not just your dollars that matter, and it's not just all the amazing research that went into this curriculum and all your subject matter expertise, but it's your people. And I really do think that people really bring this program to life for young students in this country.
Let's do some final words. What's the one thing you want us to take away, Ray, from our talk today?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank Doug and you, Lily, and you, Paula, just for your leadership and your vision and your support with Creditworthy. It's been a really special partnership, not only to EVERFI, but to all the students and teachers and schools that are using this program on a daily basis. I would say number two, just be kind to yourself. I mean, we're living in a pretty stressful world and an environment right now. And so taking time to be kind to yourself and the amazing work that you do every day. And then just the last thing I'll say is that our work together matters. And I think it matters more than we can see, more than we can measure, but the compounding impact of what we are doing and in the millions of instances of learning are going to make a difference.
Ray, thank you so much for your time today. Paula, thank you for your perspectives. Ray, thank you. We are honored and delighted to work, shoulder to shoulder with you in EVERFI's mission to, improve the financial education and wellness of American high school kids. And Paula, thank you so much for leading OneMain's efforts, including the Creditworthy program. I appreciate you both.
I'd now like to introduce Erica McCoy, Manager of Economic Mobility Services at FeedingAmerica. FeedingAmerica is the largest charity working to end hunger in the United States, and they advocate for policies that create long-term solutions to hunger. They are also a long-term valued partner to OneMain. I will now turn it over to OneMain's Natasha Dale to kick off this important conversation.
Thank you, Doug. As Doug mentioned, our partnership with FeedingAmerica is an important part of our strategic outreach in communities across the country. Happy to have this conversation with you, Erica, and learn more about FeedingAmerica. Can you give us an overview of FeedingAmerica's Empower program and how that ties to the overall FeedingAmerica strategy?
Yes, thank you, Natasha, for having me. I'm really happy to be here today and be in space with you. Our Empower work has always really been grounded in how we can support neighbors in their financial well-being. For me, it's been further invigorated by our bold aspiration, where we're really looking at how can we support communities in getting everything that they need, because we want to cut food insecurity to 5% and cut race and place disparities in half by 2030. And it's really for us going beyond direct food distribution and thinking about how we can address root causes of food insecurity. Because, the first food bank started in 1967, and we've got a lot of experience and been doing this for a long time, but we're not seeing the food insecurity rate go down the way we would want. So we know we have to do more. And I think that's where the Empower work really comes into place. It encompasses all of our work when we think about public benefits access and our SNAP application assistance. It covers our economic mobility work, in some cases, our unique healthcare partnerships work. So a lot is in there, and I'm excited to dive in a little bit further around our economic mobility work today with you.
Great. Well, let's dive into the state of food insecurity in America. You talked a little bit about that, but what are the key factors linking financial insecurity to food insecurity, and how does Feeding America's work break this cycle for individuals and families in need?
Yeah, so first, I want to ground us in what we're hearing from community today, and what our food banks are hearing from folks. You know, we know from the 2021 census data that food insecurity is still at about 12%. I imagine it's probably higher now, especially given everything not only coming out of the pandemic, but we're hearing from community that, you know, inflation and pressures on family budget is a lot, including gas and food prices going up. You know, family expenses are really outpacing wages for most folks today from their jobs, and you know, lack of sometimes access to quality employment opportunities in their local community. You know, being able to have an adequate livable wage or fair and flexible schedule is really impacting folks, and therefore influencing the food insecurity we're seeing. Because one thing we know is that food ends up being the most flexible item in someone's budget. And so it's oftentimes the first thing to go. And we've learned from USDA food insecurity screeners that a lot of folks share with us that, you know, they're at the end of the month, they just ran out of money and they couldn't pay for their food anymore. So that's where we really see the key linkages between financial insecurity and food insecurity. It's a real obvious sign for us where we know people are making tough choices, and oftentimes, you know, are thinking about they have to go without food in order to pay their medical bill, in order to pay their rent. You know, really tough choices for folks, and even though they may be working.
Yep, you're right. Those hard choices that families across America are having to make. This is a really good opportunity to transition to a discussion about the work we've recently started investing in. Last year, we transitioned our Feeding America support, our grant support, to support your Empower strategy, which you did touch on. Let's talk a lot about this investment. It supports economic mobility services, initiatives. It also specifically supports two food banks where we have a lot of team members, Food Bank of New York City and Food Bank of Delaware. Can you talk a little bit about the work, where our money is going, what is our impact in those communities and communities across the country?
Yeah, of course. Well, first, to kind of scale out and think a little bit larger from the national perspective, I think this support you all are providing is really helping us to deepen and strengthen our economic mobility work and how we think about it from a stability to mobility aspect. So when we think about all of the deep work we've done around public benefits access and access to SNAP, right? How do we really stabilize folks so that they are able to meet their day-to-day needs as much as possible? But now we're really leveraging and leaning in even more of what is our unique role when it comes to mobility, right? So we've supported folks in feeling more stable. How do we help them navigate and have access to economic pathways and opportunities, right? In which ways can we support them in navigating potentially a benefits cliff and having access to wealth generation opportunities? So from scaling out, that's, I think, what we're thinking about. You know, the two food banks in particular that you all really wanted to direct support to are two that are doing that kind of work of mobility in distinct ways. So when I think about the Food Bank of New York City and their empowerment center, you know, obviously there's some financial coaching going on there, but really what excites me is the fact that it's a VITA site, right? So they are thinking about how do they support neighbors in accessing all the benefits they can get from the child tax credit, the EITC, everything that they can come from that, and then utilizing that really strategically throughout the year, right? And we saw with the expansion of CTC and EITC during the pandemic, it drastically impacted food insecurity for children and families in particular. So that work is so important and amazing that they're doing. And so, you know, we're thinking about that work and what would it look like for others to potentially you do that sort of service, right? And then when I think about the Food Bank of Delaware, I know we're going to go into a little bit more around their financial coaching work. But I also think about the fact that they have some really powerful workforce development programs. They do culinary training as well as warehousing logistics training. And they're thinking about their role in supporting folks who might not traditionally have easy access to employment opportunities. So not only folks who are justice involved, but how are they supporting folks with disabilities, right? So they have a special program that they just launched called the Kitchen School. So they're doing some really amazing work that we're seeing locally, both of those food banks. And from a national lens, we think about how do we share those learnings? How do we support all of our network and thinking about the role to address root causes and what makes sense for their community, right? Because everything we do, we try to center the people we serve and as much as possible, raise neighbors' voices and share power when we can, because what works in New York or what works in Delaware might not work in Mississippi, for example, or Washington State, where I call home. So I think that's some of the things that we think about, and the investments you all have made with us are supporting that, are supporting how we are able to deepen and strengthen the current work, as well as support folks across our network and thinking about their unique role in mobility and how can they really leverage their infrastructure as a community asset to do that.
It's so clear that the work of the food bank has changed over the last few years. Now you're talking about SNAP, you're talking about tax prep assistance. So it's just fascinating. Let's talk a little bit more about the Food Bank of Delaware. They've got a unique program in that they are partnering with the Stand By Me program. They're partnering with another nonprofit, United Way of Delaware, but they're also partnering with the state of Delaware. Is this a new direction in food bank programming, in economic mobility services for food banks? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
It's such an integrated approach, right? Like at the food bank, they have the financial coaches sitting there, and they are nestled within not only their public benefits access work, but as well as their workforce development work, right? So really thinking holistically about how their work intersects and how they are able to really lean into partnership, right? So this is a hybrid model where it's both utilizing partnerships as well as sort of doing it themselves and having something in-house. And I think that's something that's super powerful. And really throughout it, they're trying to center neighbors and what they want. So, when they're sitting down with coaches, the coaches are just a guide and support on what neighbors want to achieve, whether that might be building wealth and trying to buy a home, or it could just be paying down debt, having savings to survive economic shocks, So those are some powerful pillars of that work, I think. I can't speak for sure of where we're going. I think we want to leverage that learning and be able to, if possible, encourage folks to think about this as an opportunity to support neighbors further. What would it look like? So many of our food banks do public benefits access, right? And SNAP application assistance. What if that person also had the skills of a financial coach and could provide that opportunity to folks as well? So I think everything we do, we are really meaningful and intentional about being grounded in community and thinking about partnerships and what's the unique role that we can play.
Thank you, Erica. So we talked about some of the positive aspects of these programs, but I want you to talk a little bit more about the significant challenges that Feeding America local affiliates face when implementing these economic mobility programs.
Yeah, so a couple things come to mind, especially when we think about this financial empowerment program at the Food Bank of Delaware. This work is time intensive and it's very high touch, the work of a financial coach. So there's only so much of a caseload one person can have. But that means that they are really working one-on-one with neighbors, which is amazing. I think it being time intensive as it is and high touch, it takes a shift in how we think about our work, right? For a food bank to kind of slow down and invest in this kind of work, because we we're so efficient, and when we are getting food into community, which is so important, right? And I don't think that work will ever really go away, especially with emergency situations. But we kind of have to shift and really invest in this work that might not mean millions of pounds. It might mean, hundreds of lives changed for the better through savings, through being able to weather economic shock. So the impact changes, but it's so powerful, right? What we are able to do with community members to support them. I think another challenge that I think about is, neighbors, a lot of them often who are experiencing food insecurity, they don't trust financial institutions, right? Especially when we think about Black and Brown communities culturally, like generations of not trusting financial institutions. So I think a real challenge for some of our coaches is while they're working to build relationship with neighbors and support them in their financial opportunities and where they want to go, they're also working to really help them build trust with financial institutions again, because we know that it's so important to be banked, to be economically mobile. So really building that repair can sometimes be a challenge.
Thank you so much, Erica. We so appreciate you for taking the time to join us today. And it's been really just enlightening learning about the work Feeding America does, but specifically how this work is aligning with our mission of improving the financial well-being of hardworking Americans. So thank you so much for sharing today, and I'll turn it back to Doug.
This concludes OneMain's Community and Philanthropy Town Hall. Thank you to all of our panelists for their partnership and support. We look forward to another year of giving back and making a difference in the communities where we live and work.